I don't know what I should have done. I know I would never have endured slavery. The idea of one human being owned by another is abhorrent. One of the things that inspired Mary Frayser is she was born right after the Civil War, and her family was very instrumental in being in service to other people. It was inspired from her from the very beginning. She was not married, she never married, and she said that's probably why she could do all she could do, because she didn't have a family. She had a sister. Her brothers had died earlier. It was just her sister and her sister's family, so she had a lot of time on her hands, and she took every minute and used it for other people. And she later went on to inspire teachers. She became a teacher, and she worked for the teachers in Virginia before she moved to South Carolina. South Carolina is her adopted home. And then she started working at Winthrop in 1912. Mary Frayser wrote some articles and some pamphlets for the Homekeepers Club for the girls when she was working with the mill villages. She worked with the Winthrop, called Normal Schools College, and she went into the different mill villages and tried to encourage the young girls to have a better home life, to teach them how to cook, teach them how to take care of their children, teach them how to take care of the house. And these were some of the things that she did as a worker. She worked from 1912 to 1917 doing this. Some of the things that Mary Frayser did was work with the mill children. And there is a street in the mill village here in Rock Hill named for Mary Frayser. It's called Frayser Street. So she worked in education, she worked in child care, she worked in interracial equality. She worked for international peace. And she did a lot of things in her life. She was very interested in interracial equality. So she worked from the time she was a young lady to get interracial equality for everybody, blacks, even Asians. She worked for Asians. She worked against the Chinese Exclusion Act, which a lot of people don't understand about in the South, that exclude all the Chinese from coming into our country. She didn't care what color they were. She just wanted to make sure that everybody was treated equally. Second thing I think was very important is she worked all her life for racial equality. Even back in the 20s and 30s, she thought it was important that everybody was equal. She worked with several organizations to help improve the racial equality of everybody. And she started in 1941, there was a YWCA started, and she helped them get the first interracial organization going. And it was in 1941, and the national YWCA didn't encourage that until 1945. So she was about 4 or 5 years ahead of YWCA in getting interracial issues going and brought to the forefront. She basically opened the door in South Carolina to get women, the women's clubs, to work for racial equality. It wasn't just herself. She realized that she could not do anything just by herself, that she had to include the women's clubs, which were very important in the early 20s and 30s and 40s in the country, to work for the racial equality. And she encouraged men and women also. And it's very important because in the South, she had to work within segregation. She knew that she couldn't be very radical, that it would turn people off. So she worked within the segregation at the time to get things done. And she did. She got a lot of things done for the racial equality. Mary Frayser was very interested in women's rights. She marched in suffragette parades in New York City in the early 1900s. And from the time that the women got the vote in 1920 until she died, when she was 100 years old almost, she voted in every election that she could vote in. She thought it was very important that women get the vote. She thought they were instrumental in improving the people in South Carolina and in the country, that women needed the right to vote to offset the men. In fact, as in Virginia, where she's from, Mary Frayser helped the teachers get a pension fund for the state of Virginia. She was the first one. She and 9 ladies went to the legislature up in Virginia, and they said, well, you can't do that. You don't have the background. You can't do that. And they were the first ones. The first time they tried to get a bill passed, they got it passed, which was very unusual. If I met Mary Frayser today, I would say thank you. You did more in your life than most people do, and you did it for other people. You didn't do it just for yourself. So thank you would be the thing I would say to her.